isn't it? Because I was looking at some recent articles about this, and if where population is talked about, it's talked about either as you were just saying, it's there's too much and it's going too fast and we're out of control. And then, but there's another quite huge body of literature and thought going around that saying there's we're now infertile, that there's not enough fertility going on, and we're kind of going, and there's I've noticed that in some countries they're even giving now tax breaks for fertility, and you know, for couples having more than a couple of kids. So where you looking at this perspective now, what do you think we should be looking at? How should we actually look at this issue?
Well, it possibly, I don't know enough medicine, it's possibly true that fecundity or fertility is dropping biologically in certain societies. There are various theories about what is maybe causing this. So people may naturally be, but there's certainly plenty of it around. And, you know, if you took away contraception and let things rip, then there's, I mean, for the predictable future, there is no problem about that. But there are two or three logical, or at least drivers to the idea that we need more children. I mean, the idea that the population should be boosted is not a new one. The French government were worrying about this in the 19th, early 20th century, and you know, they were giving out bonuses to people who had lots of children. So pro-fertility impetus. I mean, the two of the main drivers for that argument. One is nationalism, basically, or identity politics, not necessarily at the national level, but particularly with marginal or groups that don't easily recruit or want to propagate themselves. The two of the highest fertility areas in the world are Islamic societies, where it is very much encouraged in certain forms of Islam, not all, that you have as many children as possible. And that is the main role of women, to have children. And in Orthodox Judaism, I mean, Israel, as everyone knows, within a generation or two, Orthodox Jews will hugely dominate Israel because many of them don't work. Women have 13 to 15 children. And so, and in a situation like that, you sometimes get the counter pressure, because people say, look, they're breeding like rabbits, we better breed like rabbits, etc. So there's all that sort of encouragement from either religion or nationalism to have lots of children. The other argument, which I really would like to put down, as I keep saying, a marker to, because I think it's complete rubbish, but very intelligent friends of mine believe in it, and you may have read this recently, which is that an aging population is a bad thing. The argument here, which is applied to England a little bit, but ours isn't so bad, but particularly to Japan, particularly to China, particularly to India, and to developing countries, is that economic growth and a young population is somehow related. That, as in the early industrial revolution, human beings grow their economy through growing their population, and particularly through the energy, creativity, etc., of younger people. And you'll see people lamenting in the media constantly, saying, oh, look, you know, birth rates falling, more people depending on us and so on. They're talking about me. And you. Now, here am I, beavering away. coming up to 80, hour after hour of interview, my mind is not noticeably worse off than it was 20, 30 years ago. And it hasn't dawned on these economists that we are not living in the 19th century. The idea that labor is the main factor in production, labor capital and machinery. Labor is no longer, that is physical labor, is no longer the scarce resource. Anybody, I mean, the Japanese have made things which you can sort of strap onto your body so that you can become a 20-year-old laborer as a 60-year-old man, because you can have but in the age of machine intelligence and machinery, anybody can more or less can drive the things that make things. You don't have to be strong physically. And because of the medical revolution, we now have people between the age of retirement, 65, and say 85, who are just as capable. I mean, we're so blinded, we forget that the president of the United States or of India or of whatever, they're all about 80.
Yeah.
And if we can make them that, aren't we prepared to let them actually run our place? So the dependency theory, which my friend Peter Laslett was always going on about, the third age, that is complete rubbish. It does not matter. The only people who become really dependent are those in that last, 100 or 95 or whatever, who become physically very ill and so on. And we have to think about them. But until then, all you need to do is just to say, okay, we put up our retirement age to 80.